Hi guys, it's Debbie. As I have lived in Italy nearly my whole life, today I'd like to speak about some of my favourite Italian films. Before getting into the list, I would just like to point out that I have not seen most of the old Italian films, which belong to the country's golden age of cinema. All the films I'll be speaking about today are relatively recent. The first film on the list is Life is Beautiful, with the original Italian title being La Vita è Bella. Life is Beautiful is directed by Roberto Benigni, and it is probably the Italian film which gained the most success on an international scale, winning 3 Oscars, including Best Actor, again for Roberto Benigni, which alongside directing the film also portrayed the main character Guido. Life is Beautiful is set during the Second World War, and it follows the story of a Jewish family which is forced to be confined in a concentration camp, along with thousands of other people. But regardless of the inhuman situation, our main character Guido tries with all his means to make the situation a little bit lighter and brighter for his son, which is in prison with him. He tries to lighten the situation by making him believe that everything is a big fun game in which the Nazis are the goofy enemies, and in general he just tries to shield him as much as possible from the horrors that surround them. For example, in a famous scene in which one of the Nazi officers speaks German, he translates everything into funny sentences and explains that working will get you points and that crying or not following the rules will make you lose the game. Life is Beautiful has been highly praised for its touching themes and for Benigni's acting, but it has also received heavy criticism for the comedic aspect of the film, which is contrasting with the theme of the Holocaust. I don't think the film tried in any way to make fun of the whole situation, even just starting from the fact that it is inspired by the life of the director's father, which spent years in a concentration camp. On the contrary, I believe that the light-hearted humour in the film highlights just how terrible the situation was, of how innocent these prisoners were, at the hands of an organisation with an ideology which was completely out of this world and with no sense, but they never gave up hope. They still wanted to prove there was some good in the world. Guido is obviously not making fun of the situation. They are living on an extermination camp. He is fully aware that these could potentially be the last moments in his child's life, and that if he can, even putting his own life at risk, he will protect his son as much as he can. I read If This Is a Man by Primo Levi. It's an autobiographic book based on his experience in Auschwitz, one of the most infamous concentration camps, and he tells us of how on the atrocious train journey bringing all the Jews to the concentration camp, he saw a mother and a father giving their baby child one last bath. We all know what was waiting for the baby at the camp, including the parents, which wanted to give the baby as much as they could in its last moments. I would recommend watching Life is Beautiful if you are interested in films such as Schindler's List, The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas, The Pianist. The next film I'd like to speak about is Fire at Sea, with its Italian title being Fuoco a Mare. Fire at Sea is a documentary film directed by Gianfranco Rosi. It is set in Lampedusa, a small island off the coast of Sicily, towards which hundreds of thousands of migrants have travelled over the years in search for a better life. These migrants will pay a lifetime savings to unknowingly board on a broken down boat which might take them halfway across the sea. They travel days and nights, cramped in tiny spaces. Thousands of them die, many arrive in life-threatening conditions. If you live in Italy, you will know that it is normal to hear on the daily news stories of these boats which arrive every day, and to hear of the number of deaths and injured people. And this documentary follows all the different people and situations which are connected to the arrival of the migrants. The rescue teams of the Italian Navy, the doctors which assist the migrants, we see the facilities where the migrants are sheltered, and we meet the migrants themselves. This documentary is amazing. It's heartbreaking, it's honest, it's brutal, it's raw, it's touching, and what I particularly liked about it was that it didn't get involved into politics or controversies about the migrants' arrival. It just shows us exactly how it is. It tries to get more people to see how this situation is. Many people outside of Italy probably don't even know that much about the situation, but this documentary shows it all in its honest brutality. It shows the bodies, the crying, the kids that are burnt from gasoline in the engine rooms, families torn apart, the people brought to safety, those who barely made it and those that didn't. Fire at Sea also follows at the same time a parallel life of a kid which lives on the island of Lampedusa, and it draws a comparison with the life of the migrants, showing the differences between the two. For example, we see the doctor visiting this kid during a normal checkup, and then we see the same doctor explaining of the horrors he witnessed while saving these migrants. Or for example, we see a boat with nearly 1,000 migrants which travelled for a whole week, and then the kid going out for a couple of hours on the boat with his father and already feeling seasick and going home to a warm hearty meal. I would highly recommend watching this documentary to everybody. The next film I'd like to speak about is They Call Me Jig, which in Italian is Lo chiamavano Gigrobo, and is directed by Gabriele Mainetti. I think this is one of the few Italian films which actually aesthetically looks like a big blockbuster, and as a matter of fact it has gained a lot of popularity both in Italy and abroad. They Call Me Jig is set in a degraded neighbourhood of Rome and follows the life of Enzo. He is lonely, depressed, has little to no social interaction and gets by thanks to stealing. One day, while being chased by police officers, he is injured by hitting on a container of radioactive waste. This contamination gives him superpowers, mostly an unhuman strength. At first he selfishly uses these new powers for his own greedy needs, but his life changes when he meets Alessia, a mentally disabled woman. Alessia has been a victim of abuse for a very long time, and she created a safe space in the world of the Steel Jig anime. When she sees Enzo's powers in action, she associates him with one of her superheroes, Jig Robot, and sees a hero in him. This prompts Enzo to reconsider his lifestyle, his choices, and uses newfound powers to help others. Even though there is a change in the main character's mindset, They Call Me Jig remains a very dark film. Throughout the whole plot, Enzo's attitude and behaviour is very debatable, and we see how Alessia's life is scarred because of how she had been treated for years. So it's not the usual concept of a bad guy which selfishly uses his superpowers until one day his life completely changes, he puts on a spandex suit and becomes a new Superman. The plot is way darker and under some aspects very sad. We see the reality of the neighbourhood in which Enzo and Alessia live, the influence of the mafia, and the hardships many of the characters go through. But at the same time, it is really engaging because of how realistic the concept is. If Enzo suddenly sprouted a six-pack and put on a leotard, we would have been bored in under 10 minutes. Instead, we have an interesting plot and a well-developed set of characters, which include a creepy, deranged villain, which is a sort of lord of Rome's underworld. This film is obviously not the Dark Knight trilogy, but I would recommend it to anybody searching for a darker version of the usual superhero concept. The next film I'd like to speak about is Gomorrah, directed by Matteo Garrone. I've often spoken about Gomorrah on this channel. I've read the novel on which it's based, I've watched and reviewed the TV series which developed from it, and I just can't praise it enough. Gomorrah is the raw and real life story of how the mafia operates in the south of Italy, how it affects all aspects of society, and how it can expand from one small town to the edges of the world, impacting many lives on the way. Gomorrah is based on the groundbreaking novel of the same name by Roberto Saviano, which, because of the truths and the horrors he exposed, has been living under police protection for over a decade. Gomorrah explores the world of the mafia and how it impacts different characters in different ways. We have fashion designers which operate illegal factories, owners of waste disposal facilities which illegally handle toxic waste and use children as workers on their site, teenagers which see in the mafia a secure way to make money and a better life, without realizing the true consequences, the true meaning of the mafia, and how they are just disposable cogs in a huge machine. Speaking of this topic, Roberto Saviano, the author of the original Gomorrah novel, released another book just last year. It's called La Paranza dei Bambini, and it analyzes just how the mafia survives and thrives thanks to its manner of exploiting kids, especially those living in poor towns in the south of Italy, by taking advantage of the young mind's ideals and promising them a shiny new life. Gomorrah is one of the darkest and most realistic films to have made it to the big screen in Italy. It's harsh, sad, unidealistic, and it really helps us to reflect on the topic, which we all tend to see as this faraway concept, which only affects big bosses and not everyday life. Both the film and the TV series are now available on Netflix, so I definitely recommend checking them out. The next film on the list is I'm Not Scared, with the original title being Io non ho paura, directed by Oscar winner Gabriele Salvatore. I'm Not Scared is a crime thriller based on a novel of the same name by one of my my favourite writers, Niccolò Amaniti. It is set in the south of Italy during the 70s, which actually was a very grim decade for the country, as it was riddled with terrorist attacks and kidnappings. My father is a member of the police back in Italy, and we were once speaking about how the police force in the 70s and 80s needed so many recruits because of how many police officers were literally dying, were severely injured because of everything that was going on. I'm Not Scared shows the story from the eyes of a 9-year-old boy, Michele, which while cycling in the countryside surrounding his town, stumbles across a kidnapped child. He is shocked by the discovery, but at the same time he doesn't know how to act. He doesn't know if he should tell his parents. He slowly starts to bond with this kidnapped child and tries to discover more about him and help him, but still while keeping everything secret. Under some aspects, this film can be compared to The Boy with the Striped Pyjamas, in which the son of a Nazi general meets and befriends a Jewish kid inside a concentration camp and meets him every day without revealing anything to his father. These children all know there is something deeply wrong, but at the same time in their minds they don't know how to act upon this. They don't have the adult mindset of what on earth is going on here. I would definitely recommend I'm Not Scared if you enjoyed films like Prisoners or Mystic River. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe for more movie related content, and I'll see you soon. Bye.